if your ears are ringing or, if the background noise of a busy coffee shop is suddenly leaving you utterly exhausted, the problem might not actually be your ears.
Right, yeah, it's
Yeah.
usually something else
It,
entirely.
it might be your boss
Well,
or your mortgage or, I don't know, whatever else is keeping you up at 2 in the morning.
exactly.
Today, we are doing a deep dive into the bizarre, intricate biological link between a stressful lifestyle and your auditory system.
It's a connection most people never even think about.
Right. We're pulling from a deeply researched article today. It's titled From Stress to Serenity, How ECHOXEN Adaptogens Calm the Auditory System. And our mission today is to explore this highly overlooked culprit behind hearing problems.
Because it really forces a total reframing of how we conceptualize the ear itself.
Yeah, because we're moving past the obvious stuff, right? Like getting older or, standing way too close to the speakers at a concert. We're trying to figure out why the way you live directly dictates the way you hear.
Right. I mean, we usually treat hearing as this isolated mechanical process.
Right.
Like sound waves hit the eardrums, little bones vibrate, and, well, that's it.
Like a machine.
Exactly. But the reality is that your ears are really just the entry point.
Yeah.
Every single sound you encounter has to travel from the inner ear to multiple regions in the brain to be, interpreted, filtered, and assigned meaning.
Wow.
And that highly complex process, it requires flawless communication between your auditory system and your nervous system.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the core premise here is that our modern baseline of chronic stress isn't just making us irritable, it is actively physically changing how our biology processes sound.
It's physical. Yeah.
So I want to get into the actual mechanics. How does an abstract emotional state like stress physically alter the machinery of the ear and the brain?
Well, it all comes down to a biological chain reaction. And it starts, as these things often do, with cortisol.
The stress hormone.
Right. When you are under chronic stress, meaning like a lingering day in and day out state of pressure, rather than just a brief moment of panic, your body pumps out a constant stream of cortisol.
So you're just marinating in it.
Basically, yeah.
Okay.
Now, one of the physiological effects of high cortisol is vasoconstriction. It narrows your blood vessels to divert blood to major muscle groups.
Huh.
Preparing you to fight or flee.
Oh, I see. But the inner ear needs that blood flow, right?
Desperately. I mean, the inner ear relies on a very specific tiny blood vessel called the labyrinthine artery.
Labyrinthine.
Yeah, it's what we call a terminal artery, meaning there are no backup routes.
Right, really? No backup at all.
None. So if blood flow through that single artery is restricted by this stress-induced vasoconstriction, the delicate structures inside the ear are suddenly starved of oxygen and vital nutrients.
Wow. And that leads directly to the oxidative stress that was mentioned in the source material, because I read once that the tiny hair cells inside the ear, the stereocilia,
Stereocilia, yes.
right, that they require massive amounts of metabolic energy to convert those physical sound waves into electrical signals for the brain.
They do. It's a huge energy lift.
Hmm.
And that metabolic process creates waste products.
Okay.
Usually healthy blood flow just sweeps those waste products away. But when blood flow is restricted, those waste molecules, which are free radicals, they start to build up inside the ear.
Ouch.
And that is oxidative stress. It physically damages the cellular structures that are responsible for your hearing.
Okay, so if the ear is basically just the microphone, stress is essentially messing with the soundboard in the brain, right? Like turning up the gain and adding static.
That's a great way to look at it. What's fascinating here is that this glitching explains the highly specific symptoms people actually experience.
Like what?
Well, when the brain's processing power is compromised by both local oxidative damage in the ear and, widespread nervous system fatigue, you get a sudden heightened sensitivity to everyday sounds.
Like everything is just too loud.
Exactly. You struggle immensely to filter out background noise, like trying to listen to one specific conversation in a crowded room.
Yeah.
And perhaps most famously, you experience tinnitus.
The ringing.
Yeah, that persistent ringing or buzzing.
Okay, let's track how that glitching manifests with tinnitus, because the source points out that stress doesn't just cause the ringing, it traps you in a cycle that makes it significantly worse.
It does. The researchers map out a really clear sequence of causality here, and it starts with hyperalertness.
Because of the fight or flight response.
Right, because chronic stress activates your sympathetic nervous system. Your brain is actively scanning the environment for danger. Becomes super hypervigilant.
So it's looking for threats.
Exactly. So when there is a slight phantom ringing caused by that oxidative stress we just talked about, a hyperalert brain doesn't just ignore it, It locks onto it.
Oh, wow. So if your brain is hyper alert and scanning for threats all night, your sleep quality is going to be completely destroyed.
Literally ruined, yeah.
Which leads right into the next phase of the problem, right? A sleep-deprived brain just doesn't have the cognitive energy to filter out background signals during the day.
Right. It's exhausted. And taking that a step further, the physical exhaustion compounds with actual physical tension. Chronic stress causes us to physically tighten up. We clench our jaws, our neck and shoulder muscles become rigid.
Wait, how does having tight shoulders affect a ringing in the ear? That sounds like a stretch.
I know, it sounds weird, but it all comes down to neuroanatomy, specifically something called somatic tinnitus.
Somatic meaning of the body.
Exactly. So the trigeminal nerve, which innervates the muscles of your jaw, face, and neck, it actually shares pathways in the brainstem with the dorsal cochlear nucleus.
And that's the hearing part of the brain?
Yes, the part responsible for processing sound. So when you have extreme muscle tension from stress, those physical nerve signals can essentially cross-wire with the auditory nucleus.
Oh, way.
Yeah, the brain actually misinterprets the clenched jaw muscles as an auditory signal, which physically generates or amplifies the sound of the ringing.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. So your physical muscle tension is essentially cross-wiring into the audio channel of the brain.
Basically, yes.
And that creates this massive emotional feedback loop. Like the brain is acting like a paranoid security guard. It's stressed, so it locks onto the ringing. The ringing gets louder because of the jaw tension and the lack of sleep.
Right.
And then the brain interprets this loud ringing as a new threat, which dumps more cortisol into the system, which narrows the blood vessels even more.
It's a vicious cycle. And that feedback loop is why it becomes so incredibly difficult to break. You aren't just dealing with an ear problem anymore. You're dealing with a systemic nervous system overload.
Wow.
And this ties directly into the concept of sensory burnout. Because the auditory system doesn't operate in a vacuum, It is intricately tethered to the brain's attention networks.
Which explains why noisy places feel so unbearable when you're overwhelmed. Like, if you've ever felt completely drained just trying to hold a basic conversation in a loud restaurant after a stressful workday, your mental fatigue has literally lowered your brain's biological tolerance for sensory input.
Yes.
Your attention networks are just totally tapped out.
The brain is constantly running a triage protocol. When the nervous system is overwhelmed, the metabolic cost of isolating a single voice from a wall of restaurant noise is simply too high.
It just can't do it.
Right. The brain flags the entire auditory environment as hostile, which manifests as just sheer physical exhaustion.
Okay, so we have a nervous system stuck in this overloaded, hyperalert, paranoid state where the blood vessels are restricted, the trigeminal nerve is cross-firing, and the attention networks are completely burned out.
It's a mess.
Right. So how do we physically bring this biological chaos back down to baseline? Because this is where the article introduces adaptogens.
Yes, adaptogens. So these are plant compounds that have been used in traditional practices for centuries, but they are gaining massive traction in modern clinical research right now.
For stress, right?
Yeah, for their ability to help the body adapt to physical and emotional stressors.
Yeah.
But the crucial distinction here is that adaptogens are not stimulants, and they are not sedatives.
Right, because a stimulant like, a massive cup of coffee or a sedative like a sleeping pill, those just force the nervous system in one extreme direction.
Exactly.
So instead of like a light switch that's just on or off, think of adaptogens like a smart thermostat. Or even better, like shock absorbers on a car.
I like that.
Yeah, the road is still full of potholes. Your life is still full of deadlines and stress. But the shock absorbers prevent the actual chassis of your nervous system from cracking under the impact. They modulate the response.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we really have to look at the HPA axis, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis.
That's a mouthful.
It is, but it's important. This is the central hormone response system that dictates your stress levels. When you encounter a stressor, your hypothalamus signals your pituitary gland, which then tells your adrenal glands to release cortisol. And the text highlights ashwagandha, which is one of the most heavily researched adaptogens for this exact pathway.
So how does ashwagandha actually intervene in that HPA axis?
Well, it acts as a signaling modulator. Studies suggest that ashwagandha helps upregulate the body's natural feedback loop. It's essentially telling the hypothalamus, hey, we have enough cortisol, you can stop sending the panic signal now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and by lowering that serum cortisol, ashwagandha stops the vasoconstriction we talked about earlier. It allows those blood vessels to finally relax, restoring vital blood flow back to the labyrinthine artery in the inner ear.
That's amazing.
And it also promotes relaxation and deeper sleep, which gives the brain the downtime it desperately needs to restore those attention networks.
Okay, but the source also highlights a second botanical, maca root,
Yes,
and they describe it as providing energy and stamina. But wait, if we are trying to calm the nervous system down, why are we introducing something that gives you energy? Doesn't that risk overstimulating that paranoid security guard in the brain?
that is a great question. And it's really the brilliance of how maca functions differently from a standard stimulant.
Oh, so?
Well, caffeine works by blocking adenosine receptors. It basically masks your fatigue and spikes adrenaline, which absolutely triggers the HPA axis and makes stress worse.
Right, you get the jitters.
Exactly. Maca root, on the other hand, is a dense source of phytonutrients and amino acids that support cellular energy production directly, without triggering a massive adrenaline or cortisol spike.
Oh, I get it. So it provides the endurance to keep your attention networks online during those tough conversations without pushing the nervous system further into fight or flight.
Precisely. It builds systemic resilience. You have the mental stamina to process the sensory input of a noisy room, but your underlying nervous system remains anchored and balanced.
Okay, so the authors of this paper take all this botanical data regarding the HPA axis and cellular resilience, and they point to a specific formulation designed around these principles.
Right.
A liquid supplement called ECHOXEN. It combines the ashwagandha and the maca root alongside a blend of other vitamins, minerals, and plant-based ingredients in a liquid dropper format for daily use.
And the liquid format is explicitly chosen for bioavailability. It allows those compounds to enter the system much more efficiently than, say, trying to break down a dense, powdery capsule in your stomach.
So what does this all mean? I want to push back on this a little bit for you listening because it is so easy to get swept up in the chemistry of it all.
Sure.
Because I am naturally skeptical of any botanical compound claiming to fix a stressed out nervous system if the actual stressor, the terrible job, the lack of sleep is still right there.
Totally valid point.
Does the source actually claim this liquid HOXN undoes the damage, or is it basically just a biological Band-Aid?
It's a vital question.
Yeah.
But the source material is actually remarkably transparent about this. No adaptogen, formulation, or supplement is a magic bullet.
Right.
ECHOXEN is positioned as a biological tool, not a cure-all. Going back to your car analogy earlier, you can install the best shock absorbers in the world, but if you intentionally drive your car off a cliff, they aren't going to save you.
Right. So the supplement provides the raw building blocks, the nutrients to modulate the HPA axis and support those attention networks, but you still have to provide an environment where those building blocks can actually do their job.
Exactly. You are constructing an auditory sanctuary.
Yeah.
The adaptogens give your biology a fighting chance, but they have to be paired with foundational lifestyle modifications.
Like what?
Well, if you are taking ashwagandha to lower cortisol, but you are still sleeping 4 hours a night and staring at screens until dawn, you are simply overriding the botanical benefits.
Which brings us to the actual lifestyle habits the authors insist must be paired with this supplementation. Sleep is obviously paramount, as we discussed, because it literally reboots the brain's ability to filter out background noise.
Crucial.
And they also emphasize manual relaxation techniques, like meditation, deep breathing, things to intentionally force the nervous system out of that sympathetic fight-or-flight mode.
They do. They also cover the physical protections, like, using high-quality earplugs around loud machinery or at concerts to prevent acute mechanical damage to those already vulnerable stereocilia.
Makes sense.
But the more fascinating recommendations are the ones that don't immediately seem related to the ear at all. For instance, maintaining regular physical activity.
Right, because exercise pumps the heart, which forces robust blood circulation through the entire body, pushing oxygen-rich blood through that tiny labyrinthine artery we talked about, and sweeping away the waste products.
Exactly. And they pair that with eating a diet rich in antioxidants. Fruits, vegetables, healthy
The
fats.
scabbard.
Right, the antioxidants are the scavengers. They circulate in the blood and actively neutralize the free radicals, causing that oxidative stress in the inner ear.
I just have to pause and highlight how mind-bending that is when you really connect all the dots of this biological chain reaction.
It really is.
Because based on the mechanisms we've outlined today, eating a massive antioxidant-rich salad for lunch and then going for a 30-minute jog, those are literally acts of hearing protection.
They absolutely are.
You are physically defending the cellular structure of your auditory system by running and eating leafy greens. That completely shatters the traditional view of ear health just being about volume control.
It fundamentally reestablishes the ear as a deeply integrated organ.
Hmm.
You just cannot separate auditory health from cardiovascular health or from mental health.
Right.
And that leads to the final and perhaps most difficult lifestyle habit the source recommends: actively limiting constant noise exposure.
Just taking quiet breaks.
Yes, taking intentional quiet breaks throughout the day to reduce listening fatigue. And this raises an important question for you listening right now. Take a real honest look at your daily routine. When was the last time you actually gave your ears a genuine zero-input break?
Wow.
A period of time completely free from podcasts, free from background music, free from the TV chattering in the other room.
Almost never. We live in a society that is practically terrified of silence. We fill every quiet moment with a stream of data, which means our auditory processing centers and our attention networks are essentially running a marathon every single day without a water break.
Exactly. And then we wonder why. By 6:00 p.m., the sound of a fork scraping a plate or a dog barking feels like a physical assault on our nervous system.
Yeah.
We simply haven't allowed the system to cool down.
So bringing all of this together, what we've discovered in this deep dive is that your hearing is so much more than what your physical ears are detecting in the environment. It is this remarkable, delicate, highly vulnerable partnership between the inner ear, the brain's processing centers, and the overarching nervous system.
It's all connected.
And chronic stress, by spiking cortisol, restricting blood flow, cross-wiring physical tension, and exhausting our attention networks, actively degrades that partnership.
But the crucial takeaway from the source material is that this degradation doesn't have to be permanent.
That's the good news.
Right. Whether you are dealing with a sudden spike in sound sensitivity, or you're battling a frustrating somatic feedback loop of tinnitus, or you simply want to proactively preserve your hearing as you age, a holistic approach can fundamentally shift your baseline.
Yeah.
It requires a multifaceted strategy. You utilize targeted supportive nutrients like the adaptogens found in ECHOXEN to modulate the internal stress response while simultaneously optimizing your external environment through sleep, circulation, and intentional recovery.
It's about pulling the biological levers you actually have control over.
Precisely.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over today, and it builds on that idea of sensory burnout. We talked heavily about how the brain's attention networks become exhausted by constant sound and how stress makes us hyperfixate on the noise.
Right.
So could actively seeking out absolute, uninterrupted silence not just be a way to rest our physical ears, but actually be a vital form of emotional regulation? In our modern, constantly buzzing, hyper-connected world, maybe silence is the most powerful and the rarest adaptogen we have. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. Keep exploring, stay curious, and we'll catch you next time.